What's up everyone, it's JOHN-ELSuperman back with another comic talk review, talk through. Today we have Superman and Lois EarthPrime issue 2. And basically what the EarthPrime comic series was a 6-issue run that meant to give the Arrowverse a comic run. But this was the Arrowverse in 2022, so there was no Arrow left. It was basically Stargirl, Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, Superman and Lois, and The Flash. Which was just wrapping up, I do believe. Yeah, so it's a pretty decent, smallish run. It's not the first time that DC has attempted to do a comic run from one of their shows. Arrow had them, Smallville had it, there was the Superboy one years ago, Quest for Peace, so there's quite a few. But I don't think none more deserving of a comic run set in its continuity deserved it more than Superman and Lois. So we start the first story of the issue with Anniversary, where it opens up on the Kent farm, with Clark and Lois and the two boys, who are puzzled to see their dad in a suit that isn't the Superman one, and to why Clark and Lois would be celebrating their wedding anniversary 4 days late. The boys, joking around, ask if it's a Kryptonian tradition. Lois responds, "It's not, but it is a funny story, however." We cut to a flashback 365 days after Clark and Lois have had their wedding, where Clark gives Lois a bunch of flowers to celebrate their 1-year anniversary. Lois tells him about their plans for the day and that not to be late because they have a table booked at a restaurant at 9 PM. We then cut to that night as we get to see Superman of this Earth fight giant robots Flesher style, which is just such an awesome sight to see and to think about. This Superman fighting these robots. All the meanwhile, Lois is still waiting at the restaurant. We then cut to the next day and 366 days after their wedding, where we see Clark apologising to Lois with some flowers. She forgives him, knowing that there's nothing he could do to help it. He then mentions he's managed to pull a few strings at the restaurant that they were supposed to attend the night before, and that they have another reservation for that night. And it's here, this night, where we see the roles reversed and just how busy, truly, both of their lives really are. We then cut to Lois helping Perry fix the printing press machine, knowing that nobody can come out to fix it, and if she doesn't, there'll be no Daily Planet papers ready to go in the morning. So Lois helps him. Perry is convinced that the machine is broken on purpose, where Lois then finds a small toy inside the machine. We then see Clark, like Lois the night before, waiting in the restaurant, where he helps the waiter stand before he has an accident. We then cut to the day after and 367 days after their wedding. This time around we get to see Lois apologising to Clark for missing the night before. Both parties agree that they'll try and make it to dinner tonight and do the best they can. Lois then mentions how weird it was that the printing press was messed up and how she found a toy inside it. They then went to this place that the toy shop was bought from, and the man knows nothing apparently. As Lois notes, he might have been lying through his teeth. We then see them both back at the Daily Planet again as they both agree to be there for dinner that night. We then get to see the Superman of this Earth fight Nuclear Man. It's one panel, but it's honestly so amazing to see. Meanwhile, Lois is at the restaurant again where she sees Superman fighting Nuclear Man on TV and calls for the check. We then cut again to the next day and 368 days after their wedding. We then see Clark apologising to Lois again, and how she can choose between flowers or a burrito or both. Clark is worried. He doesn't want Lois to think he doesn't care about her because he keeps missing their nights out and their anniversary. But she tells him not to worry, and that most people live busy lives and most people are Superman and Lois Lane. Lois then asks Clark if he can see anything in the toy from the other day that was lodged in the printing press, where he finds the initials Crank Co. is engraved in the inside of the toy itself. Lois is now wondering where she's seen that name before. Both back at the Daily Planet, they agree on meeting again for another meal that night. We then see Lois that night as she rings Agent Duval on the Toyman and his latest schemes with Intergang, as Clark is joined by the waiter Stan, where he and Stan have a meal together, which is just the most Clark thing ever. We then cut to the day after again, which is now 369 days after their wedding. This time around, Lois is apologising to Clark, but he's just happy that she busted Intergang, and how proud he is of her. Lois mentions how Toyman wasn't working alone though, and that she's got evidence that there's a politician involved in Metropolis who has helped Toyman and Intergang, and that she plans to nail the both of them. Back at the Daily Planet, Lois mentions that she's talked to Clark's waiter friend Stan and that they can have another table tonight or any night they need, when Clark asks Lois if they can go somewhere quiet and have a chat. In a local park, Clark confesses how sad he is that they both couldn't celebrate their wedding anniversary on the day of again, and Lois and he agree that no matter what they will celebrate it tonight. Lois mentions how she all has an interview with the mayor that day, and Clark says that he will keep his Superman in to local only tonight. Only to cut to that night where we see Lobo show up, mention how he's preferred Superman's Golden Age outfit to the one he's wearing now. "Thanks, my mum made it for me," he says. A fight then breaks out between Lobo and Superman as Lobo chains up Superman with kryptonite chains and drags him into deep space. We then cut to Lois with the mayor. Just as Lois is leaving, she receives a message from someone with information on Bruno Mannheim and the politician who was in on the Intergang gig with Toyman. Back in outer space, we see Bibbo's favourite shrimp shack. As Superman asks Lobo what does he want from him, Lobo then mentions how a badass red-headed woman is wanting Superman. I wonder who that could be. Superman then breaks his way out of the chains as we cut back to Lois on Earth. Lois is now at the place where she received information that Bruno Mannheim would be meeting with the politician. Going undercover, she discovers that it's the mayor that she's just previously met. She leaves as quick as possible just as Superman floors it back to Earth. Now outside the restaurant, they've both finally made it and it's closed. Lois mentions how it could always be like this. Clark says, with him as Superman and Lois as the world's greatest journalist, there could always be moments like this. But what matters is that keep trying, and that it's the love that they show each other and the attempts that they make is what matters the most. Lois then says, jokingly, that she did really want Hawaiian port though, and Clark says, well, not to worry, because he knows a place that is still open. We then cut to the present where the boys are in shock that their parents are sneaking off to Hawaii to celebrate their wedding anniversary 4 days after the fact. Now a tradition. End of the anniversary story ends with Lois and Clark on the beach in Hawaii celebrating their anniversary. Just such a nice end to the story, which is then followed up by Father's Day. We open up this story in Smallville where we meet a young Clark Kent and Jonathan Kent. Clark is talking in the present tense about how growing up in a small town meant everyone knew everyone's secrets, which had Jonathan Kent extra determined to keep Clark's secret even more hidden. A bus turns up and is about to hit another boy as Clark uses his abilities to save the boy. Clark then apologises to Jonathan for using his powers, where Jonathan says not to worry and what was he supposed to do, stand there and watch him get hit. We then cut to Clark talking about how every morning he would always see Jonathan read a newspaper, and how anytime they would watch a film, Jonathan would always want to show him his favourite movie, which showed journalists fighting for truth. Clark then mentions how Jonathan really liked journalists when he was a kid, and he liked how determined they were to get the truth and what was right out there. Clark says that it's safe to say that it left an impression on him. Clark then mentions just how much he misses his father, and despite him being Superman, he wonders what his father would have made out of him, of being in a cape and flying around to show people just what truth and justice can really mean and do. But aside from that, he wonders even more, and he wishes even more, that Jonathan was there today to see Clark have his first front page story in the Daily Planet, just like Jonathan used to read all those years ago every morning. We then cut to the last story, Controlled Burn. This is a very different story from the other two, as we follow the Superman from John Henry's Earth. Yeah, the evil one. We start with the line, the childhood experiences of a boy inform the man he becomes, setting the tone for this story. As we see the Jonathan Kent of this Earth, showing Clark a controlled burn on the farm, as he explains that they do it to destroy dead crops and to make way for new ones. We then cut to the 4th of July, as the Kent family get involved in a car crash, taking the lives of this Earth's Martha and Jonathan Kent, leaving Clark to be adopted by some not so nice people. In Clark's new home, it wasn't a house of love, and Clark could hear every word and every punch in this house, unlike the other boys. But he couldn't just stand by and watch these things happen, seeing what was being done to his foster mother or to the other boys. Clark knew he had to act. Clark didn't realise just how strong he was until it was too late, and he didn't realise what he had done. This accident, along with losing the Kents, had changed his Superman forever. He then spent an undisclosed amount of time on the run just before being caught by the police, and instead of being sent to a normal prison, they sent him to a testing facility where he was experimented on. Upon breaking out, Clark discovers his ship that brought him to Earth inside a sunstone crystal. Clark then places the crystal in the Amazon, and after years of being on the run and being experimented on, Clark finally has a home where he meets Jor-El and tells him the troubles of this Earth. Upon hearing the life that his son, Kal-El, has had, Jor-El trains him to be different than normal, to see the Earth differently, and to deliver this world from its evil, and to lift humanity out of the dark. We see this version of Kal decide between the Saviour moniker or Superman, eventually choosing the latter, liking its original meaning. We see this Superman be more aggressive and more assertive in human politics, making himself an enemy of every government on the planet. But he does have the public support and the validation that he craves from them, and that he believes with this that his righteous crusade against the planet and the governments of this world is in fact correct. We then see Tal-Rho eventually show himself and his true identity to Superman, and convinces him that the humans are a waste, and that his 20 years as Superman has shown them nothing, and they've learned nothing, and that together they can resurrect Krypton and their fallen brothers, and lead the humans anew. Just like on the show, Superman then attacks Metropolis. For 7 minutes he rains hell on them, killing this world's Lois Lane. Seeing this act of violence, the planet then declares war on the Supermen, where the Resistance loses its capital, Coast City. Poor Coast City is never catching a break. Superman thinks of his actions as to like what Jonathan Kent had showed him all them years ago on the farm, A controlled burn. We then see the moment in which Superman goes after John Henry as seen in the show. John Henry disappears into the other universe, as this version of Kal-El finds himself a very different fate. This was such a fantastic issue, and I really can't recommend it enough for fans of the show that haven't read it yet, or picked it up. I honestly wish they'd done more for the show like this, and hopefully they may do in the future. Who knows? Thanks for watching though, take care, and bye for now.